Some of UVA's BME professors tell us how they were attracted to biomedical engineering. Sometimes a person or key event inspired their choice of career.
So my interest in high school, and actually it started in 6th grade, so just to give you a little bit of history, I was recently asked to go back to the University of Utah where I got my PhD to give an alumni seminar of where they are now kind of thing. And in the process, I was going through old clippings and things to answer this question of what my interests were. And I had an article that was written about me in 6th grade, and the title was "She Plans to Find Cure for Diseases." So apparently ever since I was in 6th grade, I knew I wanted to be a scientist. And I guess it started even sooner because my parents got tired of me asking them questions all the time about how things worked and what things were happening, and so they gave me a book, a Tell Me Why book, so I would stop asking them so many questions and I would go find out for myself. So I've always had this curiosity, this overwhelming curiosity about the world in general and people, and that's why I'm really into biology.
So how did I end up in biomedical engineering? It was a complete and utter accident. And that, I think, is probably the way of many things in life. It's all accidental. So the way it happened was I was doing research, a very traditional pathway from student to having a PhD to becoming a professor somewhere, and the time came when I needed to look for a job. And I looked for a job and looked for a job, and there really wasn't much out there for my field. And turned out where there were openings was in this field called biomedical engineering. Now, quite frankly, I didn't know a lot about biomedical engineering. I remembered when I was in high school, I had a privilege of working in a lab in a medical school, and every day I'd pass by some doors that would say biomedical engineering, and I finally asked my mentor, "That sounds really exciting, what is that?" He said, "Oh, you don't want to go into that. No. They fix hospital beds and things like that." Well, comes time to look for a job so many years later, and there are lots of jobs in biomedical engineering. It's growing and growing and growing. So I apply to a biomedical engineering program at the University of California in San Diego. I get an interview. I'm out there interviewing with a man with the last name of Skalak. And at around that same moment in time, if not that very same day, another man named Skalak, his son, a professor here at UVA, was leaving a message on my answering machine in Vermont saying, "Hey, have you heard we have positions open? Why don't you interview here?" I didn't get the job at UCSD. I did get the job here. So it was kind of funny how it all came full circle that, I think it's really cool. I'm told, "Oh, you don't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole." Find out that's where the jobs are, get a job because somebody heard my name in a completely different context, and here I am. And then it became a question of fitting in. And it turned out I fit in for, of all the strangest reasons, because I am a farm kid. I grew up on a little farm. If you need something, you make it. If it doesn't work, you fix it. I was actually more comfortable in many ways with engineering and engineering design than most of my colleagues who are formally trained in engineering. So one nice thing about biomedical engineering, there's room for everybody.
In high school, I really was interested in everything, so I didn't know what I wanted to do in college, and I ended up applying to different colleges for completely different majors. So I applied to Johns Hopkins, which has a really good BME program for BME, but I also was considering one place for drama, one place for biology, I applied to what the schools were good at, and I went and visited the places. And so picking the school and picking my first major were sort of just a feel. I just went and visited, and I was really excited by all the things I saw at Johns Hopkins and what people were doing in BME, and I really liked the school. And so I went there, and it turned out that I continued to really like it for the whole time, and so I stayed in BME. But yeah, I can't really say that I knew ahead of time that that's what I wanted to do. It's more that it sounded interesting, and I tried it, and then it kept sounding interesting. And so then, after undergraduate, you have a lot of choices about what you can do next. You can get a job, you can go maybe to graduate school. A lot of biomedical engineering students end up going to medical school. So the second round, when I had to choose what to do next, was also kind of luck. I think sometimes you think that people know where they're going and you just go there. But in my case, many of the choices along the way have been partly doing what you're interested in, but also partly luck. So when I was an undergraduate, I thought I might be interested in research. I wanted to work in a research lab and see if I liked it. And I started knocking on doors, and then where I was in school, it was very hard to get into a laboratory. So people would say, "What year are you?" And I would say, "A sophomore," and they would say, "Come back when you're a senior." But one guy opened the door and he said, "What year are you?" And I said, "Sophomore." And he said, "What can you do?" And I said, "I know how to write computer programs." And he said, "Well, I might have a computer program that needs writing." And it turned out that that laboratory was a heart mechanics laboratory. And heart mechanics is what I do today. So I think it's just luck that he was the guy who was willing to give me a chance, and I liked what they did in the lab, and it's still what I do today.
So why, after spending like 10 years in the field of electrical engineering, why did you choose to switch? So actually, when I was a high school student, I was amazed by the fundamental science. So I want to be in academia to have a little bit of freedom to study the things, the fundamental physics or fundamental science that I'm interested in. But after I spent 10 years in the field of electrical engineering, I figured that actually this field is more like a mature field. So there's less of a research opportunity, particularly in academia. So most of them actually are in industry. So by seeing that, actually I decided to switch to biomedical engineering. But still I use the same background, my optics background. So just for different applications. Previously in the electrical engineering field, I applied optics to do communication. But now I apply optics to do biomedical imaging. So I see it as a natural transition, just to make me to stay in academia to do the research that I'm more interested in.
I also grew up as a dancer. I started ballet when I was about 3 years old, and I danced all the way through high school, and I loved it. And I think that also made me fascinated with movement and how the body works and how our muscles work, and how do you strengthen your muscles well, how do you what happens when you injure your muscles and your tendons. So that's something that I was always thinking about when I was young, that has ultimately part of the reason why right now my research is all about muscle.
So I have actually a really funny story about how I got interested in BME. I was in ninth grade, and I remember this. It was actually a pretty monumental thing for me. So we were watching a show on PBS, my family was, some night, and I remember it was called Indestructible People. And there was this story about this kid who was born without the ability to hear. He had hearing parents, and then he got one of these cochlear implants, so one of these little devices that gets inserted that allows him to start distinguishing sounds. And I remember the kid first being able to all of a sudden notice that there were sounds around him. It was a very moving kind of story. And I thought, I want to do that. I want to do something where you build things to help people.
Jeff Hansfield. I'm a doctoral candidate in biomedical engineering at the University of Virginia. And I first got interested in biomedical engineering when I was young, about 13 or so. And I went to a bioengineering summer camp put on by the local college where I'm from. And from there, I kind of wasn't acquainted with biomedical engineering for a long time. I studied physics and mathematics in college, and I was into sports and that kind of thing. And after college, when I was sort of thinking about what I wanted to do long term, I was thinking a lot about thinking about the body and athletics and that kind of thing, and how that can be integrated with physics and mathematics. And I found biomedical engineering to be a really nice union of those different ideas. And so you can use mathematics, you can use physics to understand things about the human body that other people haven't figured out. And it's an exciting time to be in biomedical engineering, because we're finding that a lot of what's been done so far in biology and anatomy is really just the tip of the iceberg. And if you use computer models, if you use mathematics and physics, you can understand more about these things than anyone has before.